Education is a term that we have grown up listening to since we were kids. Right from the beginning of childhood till this very moment, we have been surrounded by education and its need and importance. A luxury for the rich, a necessity for the bread earner, a dream for the underprivileged, an aspiration for the suppressed, a distant reality for the inaccessible. The primary objective of education is to impart knowledge. Education also has its fair share in building the thinking capacity of people's minds. Hence, education supplies people with knowledge and facts and also encourages them to integrate that acquired knowledge into practical and professional lives via necessary training. Education, thus, also plays a primary role in supporting the economic, social, and cultural sector of a country. It's a way to change the future today. The current education system can make people easy to lead, but difficult to drive, is either all academic, all physical, all virtual, or all costly. Also, it makes easy to govern, but impossible to enslave. We cannot win over the future by sabotaging our present with extreme disparity. IIU takes great pride in saying that we're bridging the gaps in education system. We're not just academicians, but also practically oriented. We're not just limited to virtual classes, but also physical exposure. We do not dig a hole in the pockets of the students and their families. We're everything that traditional education hasn't been. IIU has already implemented and promoting the MOOCs technology. When we talk about MOOCs technology, it stands for Massive Open Online Courses. The word massive is to be understood in the sense that 100,000 learners or more at the same time have open and equal opportunities to attend these courses. MOOCs are truly a tremendous technological leap, and what makes them so attractive is that they don't imply any cost to learners. IIU has tied up with more than 100 universities to provide more than 10,000 courses to the students, free of cost, with the help of MOOCs technology. We're a revolution in the making, a wind of change. Education is much more charming and intriguing than the temptations of distractions unnecessary. Our education policymakers must look into the problem to make a better system which is more practical and provides hands-on learning to the students. Who are we? The International Internship University is a virtual university with state-of-the-art curriculum, real-life industry exposure, amazing student attention, learning-oriented resources, and most of all, a commitment to make the world a better place. Why do we exist? We exist to fulfill the necessity of the bread earner. We exist to help underprivileged achieve their dreams. We exist to fuel aspirations and accessibility. We exist to provide everyone the luxury of being capable of changing the world. We really do exist to ignite young minds and make them the torchbearers of tomorrow. For a better future. For the legacy of everyone who's left us. For the hope of everyone who's yet to come, and for the growth of everyone who walks this beautiful planet. We invite you to join our world-class educational team and platform with an altruistic dedication to creating the future. The change is so big that it would potentially impact millions across the world. Millions of children and youth around the world cannot wait any longer. Please join us in our effort to create the virtual learning generation of IIU. We're IIU, we're change. Welcome to our world, a new tomorrow.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, distinguished educators, trainers, academic leaders. Mona, if you just wait a little bit to share your screen, just a little bit. So we are first. We would like to say sorry for the delay because they were a little bit late with the previous session. Again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, distinguished educators, trainer, academic leaders, and valued participants joining us from different parts of the world. On behalf of the International Internship University, it is my pleasure to welcome you all today to today's webinar. From content delivery to deeper learning, applying the educational SPECTRA framework in lesson planning. In today's educational landscape, the question actually is no longer only how much content we're going to deliver. The real question is how deeply can our learner understand, connect, reflect, and apply what they are going to learn. This shift actually represents the heart of modern education. As educators, we are not only responsible for preparing lessons or covering chapters, we are responsible actually for designing meaningful learning experience that develop critical thinking, creativity, confidence, engagement, and long-term understanding. Today's sessions is especially important because it's going to focus on one of the key challenges in teaching and training, how to move beyond traditional content delivery and create lessons that lead to deeper, more purposeful learning. Throughout the educational SPECTRA framework, we are going to explore together a practical and a structured approach to lesson planning that help educators to make learning more engaging, learner-centered, and impactful. At International Internship University, actually, we believe that empowering educators mean empowering communities, institutions, and the future generation. This is why we continue to create global learning spaces where educators, trainers, and academic professionals can exchange knowledge, strengthen their skills, and contribute to the advancement of education worldwide. It is now my pleasure to introduce today's trainer, Ms. Mona Sawan. She's an IIU Education Ambassador, and also she's the founder of Empowering Educator Academy. Mona brings strong educational passion, practical expertise, and a clear commitment to supporting teachers and trainers with innovative learning center approach. Through her work, she empowers educators to move beyond traditional teaching method and design learning experiences that create deeper understanding, stronger engagement, and meaningful learning outcomes. We are confident that today's session will be valuable, practical, and inspiring for everyone joining us. I warmly invite all participants to be active, to be engaged, and open to reflection throughout the session. With great pleasure, I now just welcome Ms. Mona to lead us into this important and inspiring discussion. Thank you and welcome everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Maha. Thank you. Great day. Good day, everyone. Today's this webinar, we are going to explore an important shift in teaching, moving from content delivery to deeper learning. As teachers, we often work hard to explain lessons clearly, prepare activities, and make sure students understand the content. But the question is understanding the content enough? So today, we will look at how the educational SPECTRA framework can help us redesign lessons so that students do not only receive information, but also investigate, think from different perspectives, analyze challenges, create solutions, reflect, and act. This session is practical. I will not only explain the framework, I will show you how it can be applied through a real lesson planning example using the topic of climate change. By the end of this webinar, you will have a clearer idea of how one traditional lesson can become a deeper, more meaningful learning experience. So let us begin with a short reflection. Okay. One common problem is in lesson planning is that lessons often stop early. Students receive information, then they answer questions, then they complete a worksheet. After that, the lesson ends. Again, this is not wrong. Explaining content, asking questions, and using worksheets can all be useful. But if the lesson ends there, students may know the information without deeply engaging with it. For example, students may memorize the causes of climate change, but they may not understand how different communities are affected. They may list effects, but they may not examine why solving this issue is difficult. They may answer questions correctly, but they may not create a responsible response. This is the gap we are addressing today. Many lessons cover content, but not all lessons create deeper learning. So now the question becomes, why does deeper learning matters? Okay, so now that we have started thinking about lesson time, I would like to hear how you personally understand the idea of deeper learning. This will help us connect the concept to our teaching practice before we define it more clearly. So I will share a link in the chat box. So please answer the question. Okay, I shared it right now. Okay, just open the link. So you can scan the QR code, or you can join using the link I provided you in the chat box. Okay, so what does deeper learning mean to you? Again, you can scan the QR code or share. I already shared the link in the chat box. Now I'm waiting for your answer. What does deeper learning mean to you? I'm waiting your answers, please. Just to know, what does deeper learning mean to you? If anyone has a problem to join the link, you can write your answer in the chat box. It's okay. Real life application. Waiting for your answers.
When some of them shared an answer on
In the
the
chat
chat
box.
box. So if you please, you
Yes.
can read it.
I mean, okay, deeper learning means the learning resulting to visible outcomes, to understand better and comprehend the meaning with daily life use by clarifying the topic and making lesson objectively clearer. It means to learn everything slowly. Okay, so thank you. Great. Now I can see many powerful words here. Some of you connected deeper learning to thinking, to application, creativity, understanding, and reflection. These words are exactly at the heart of what we are discussing today. Deeper learning is not about adding more content. It's about helping students use knowledge in a meaningful way. So deeper learning matters because students today need more than facts. They need to understand meaning. They need to ask questions, explore perspectives, create solutions, and reflect on action. In English, let's say, deeper learning might mean asking students to analyze a character's decision from different perspectives instead of only summarizing the story. In science, it might mean using evidence to explain climate change instead of only memorizing definitions. In math, it might mean interpreting the real-world graphs and explaining what the data means. In social studies, it might mean examining how a decision affects different groups in society. As well, in social emotional learning, it might mean reflecting on personal responsibility and collective action. So deeper learning is not one activity, it's a way of designing learning so that students become thinkers, problem solvers, and responsible decision makers. Now that we understand why deeper learning matters here, let's move to this visual. This visual shows the educational spectra framework as a learning cycle. At the center, please stop annotating on the screen. At the center, we have deeper learning. This is important because Spectra is not only about completing activities, it's about helping students move toward deeper understanding and meaningful application. Around the center, we have the 6 stages, which is search for knowledge, perceive perspectives, examine challenges, consider possibilities, transform ideas, and finally reflect and act. But, Miss Maha, are you able to mute all, please? I want you muted me? Okay. Okay. Again, this I want you to notice that the framework is circular. So this means learning is not always linear. Sometimes the students search for information, then discover a challenge, then return to search for more evidence. Sometimes reflection leads them to ask new questions. The framework gives teachers a clear structure, but it also gives flexibility. For example, in a climate change lesson, students first search for scientific evidence. Then they explore how climate change affects different people. They examine why the problem is difficult to solve. They consider realistic actions. They create a plan. Finally, they reflect on what they learned and what they can do. Now that you have seen the SPECTRA framework as a cycle, let us check our understanding in a simple way, okay? Just remember that each stage has a different purpose in the learning process. Again, same link in the WOOC lab, okay? Here is the second question. You can join using the same link, okay? My question for you, in your opinion, which SPECTRA stage focuses on understanding different viewpoints? Just vote, please. You have 2 minutes to vote. Which SPECTRA stage focuses on understanding different viewpoints? Examine. Examine. Perceive. Waiting for others to vote. Please, which SPECTRA stage focuses on understanding different viewpoints? Let me check the chat box. Examine, examine, perceive, examine. Examine. Perceive, examine. examine and transform. There is no answers correct or not. In my opinion, each one has their opinion, right? So this connects to perceive perspective stage. Why? This stage helps students understand that the same issue can be experienced differently by different people. This is important because deeper learning is not only cognitive, it's also human and contextual. Let's move. Let us now briefly walk through the 6 stages. The first stage is search for knowledge. In this stage, students gather information, activate prior knowledge, and build foundational understanding. This is where many lessons begin. The second stage is perceive perspectives. Students explore different viewpoints, emotions, stakeholders' experiences. This helps them understand that real issues affect people differently. The third stage is examine challenges. Students in this stage identify obstacles, misconceptions, risks, and barriers. This stage strengthens critical thinking. The fourth stage is consider possibilities. In this stage, students move from problems to possible solutions. They explore alternatives and opportunities. The fifth stage is transform ideas. Students create something meaningful, such as a product, design, a proposal, a campaign, or action plan. The final stage is reflect and act. Students in this stage evaluate their learning and decide what action or next step is meaningful. The strength of SPECTRA is that it connects knowledge, perspective, critical thinking, creativity, reflection, and action in one learning cycle. Now that we understand the stage, let us connect the framework to classroom practice. The Educational SPECTRA Framework was introduced as a conceptual framework for multi-perspective learning. But a framework becomes truly valuable when teachers can use it in real classrooms. Today, we are translating the framework into a practical lesson planning process. This doesn't mean replacing the curriculum. No, it means enriching the lesson you already teach. You can keep your learning objectives, your topic, your subject content, but redesign the learning process so students go deeper. For example, if your lesson is about climate change, you still teach the causes and effects, but you also ask students to explore perspectives, examine challenges, consider solutions, create a response, and reflect on action. So SPECTRA is not an extra burden. It's a thinking structure that helps teachers plan with more intention. So before we apply the framework, let us look at what a traditional lesson usually looks like. Okay, so I want you to think about your own planning habits. When we prepare a lesson, we usually give more attention to elements than others. This short question will help us reflect on where our planning focus usually goes. Now, let's move to the second question. student inquiry, reflection, and action. Okay, thank you. Your response showed that lesson planning begins with objectives, content, task, or assessment. These are all important. Spectra doesn't remove them. Instead, it helps us ask an additional question. How can this lesson move students toward deeper thinking and meaningful application? Now, let's choose climate change as our lesson topic. In a traditional lesson, okay, in a traditional lesson, the objective might be the students identify the causes and effects of climate change. The task may include reading. It's simply incomplete if our aim is deeper learning. Now, let us look more specifically at what is missing. What is missing? Okay, in the traditional lesson, several deeper learning elements might be missing. First, multiple perspectives might be missing. Students may not ask how climate change affects farmers, businesses, students, or future generations. Second, challenge analysis may be missing. Students may not examine why climate change is difficult to solve. Third, possible solutions may be missing as well. Students may know the problem, but not think about realistic actions. Fourth, student creation as well may be missing. Students may answer questions, but not design proposal, action plan, or something like a product. Finally, reflection and action may be missing. Students may finish the lesson without asking what changed in my thinking. What can I do next? This is the core issue. Students may know the facts, but they may not deeply understand the issue or their role in responding to it. Now that we have seen the limitation, let us redesign the same lesson using Spectra, starting with search for knowledge. Okay. Now we are using the Spectra in our lesson planning, okay? The first Spectra stage is search for knowledge. At this stage, the teacher acts as a facilitator. The goal is to help students build a strong foundation before they move into deeper analysis. The teacher here might say, before we discuss solutions, we need to understand the evidence. What do we know about climate change? The teacher can show a temperature graph, a greenhouse gas diagram, climate vocabulary, or a short infographic. So students can identify key facts, causes, and effects. They can analyze data, trends, and write observations. For examples, students may look at a graph showing temperature increase over time and answer, what pattern do you notice? What evidence shows that the climate change is changing? What about the assessment? The assessment evidence can be a KWL chart, yani what I know, what I want to know, what I learned, which is usually a formative assessment. It helps the students activate what they know and identify what they need to learn before moving toward deeper analysis, application, and creation. Maybe the assessment evidence can be a data observation sheet, maybe vocabulary notes, or a short summary. The guiding question is, what do we know about the climate change and what evidence supports it? So once students understand the evidence, we can move to the next stage, which is the perceived perspectives. Now, let us experience the perceived perspective stage together. Instead of only talking about perspectives, I want you to think like a teacher planning this lesson. If your students are learning about climate change, whose voice would you bring into the classroom first? Same link, please. Here is the question. Whose perspective would you ask your students to explore first? A farmer, a coastal community, a business owner, a government official, a student, or future generation? You can use the same link in the chat box. Just imagine you are teaching a lesson on climate change. Whose perspective would you ask your students to explore first? Farmer, most of you, business owner. Okay, great. These are excellent choices. Notice how each perspective opens a different kind of discussion. A farmer may focus on crops and income. A coastal community may focus on safety and displacement. A business owner may focus on cost and responsibility. A student or future generation may focus on hope, fear, and long-term impact. This is why perspective taking makes the lesson deeper. So in perceived perspectives, the teachers here shifts from being a content expert to becoming a guide instead of asking what do students know. We begin here asking whose voices have we not heard. So once students understand the science of climate change, we invite them to see the issue through the eyes of others. For example, one student might explore the perspectives of a farmer experiencing drought, or another might represent a family living in a coastal community threatened by rising sea levels, while others might investigate the viewpoints of business owners, government officials, or young people concerned about their future. The goal is not simply to identify who is affected. It's to understand how and why different groups experience the same issue differently, and how those experiences influence their decisions and responses. To support this learning, students might create an empathy map, maybe completing a role card, write a journal entry from a stakeholder's perspectives, or give a short oral presentation. This guiding question at this stage, the guiding question here at this stage is who is affected and how do different groups experience the same issue differently. So once students understand multiple perspectives, they are ready to ask an even deeper question. So if so many people are affected, why is solving this problem still so difficult? That brings us to the next stage, which is the examine challenges. So now that students have explored different perspectives, many teachers may feel ready to move directly to solutions. But before students design solutions, they need to understand why the problem continues. This is where critical thinking becomes very important. Okay, let's move to Again, another question. You can please scan the QR code, or you can join the link I shared in the chat box. So the question is very clear. Why, when students identify a problem, what should they do next? What should they do next? Excellent. Maybe complete a worksheet, memorize more facts, investigate why the problem exists, brainstorm solutions. Excellent. Thank you so much for your engagement. So many of us are tempted to jump straight to solutions. However, before students can develop meaningful solutions, they first need to understand what makes the problem difficult. That is the purpose of the examine challenges stage. Here, in this stage, the teacher shifts from guiding, understanding, to facilitating critical thinking. Instead of asking what is the problem, we ask why does this problem persist? In our climate change lesson, students investigate barriers such as misinformation, economic costs, weak policies, and everyday habits that make change difficult. To support this thinking, students might create a barrier map, a fishbone diagram, or complete a challenge analysis worksheet. The guiding question is, what makes climate change difficult to solve? Again, once students understand the barriers, they are ready for the next stage. So if these challenges exist, what realistic possibilities can we explore? Let's move to consider possibilities. This is the fourth stage, which is consider possibilities. Once students understand the challenges, they are ready to think about solutions. At this stage, the teacher shifts from facilitating critical thinking to encouraging solution thinking. So instead of asking, why is this happening? As a teacher, I can ask, what can we realistically do about it? In our climate change lesson, students might suggest actions such as reducing plastic waste, planting trees, creating awareness posters. The key word is realistic. We are not asking students to solve climate change. We are asking them to identify actions they can influence within their school or community. So students compare ideas, evaluate their feasibility, and decide which solution would have the greatest impact. Here, the guided question is, what realistic actions could reduce the problem at school or in the community? Once the students have selected a promising solution, they are ready for the next stage, which is transform ideas, where they turn their ideas into meaningful products or actions. Transform ideas. This is the fifth stage. This is where learning becomes visible. Here, in this stage, students move beyond discussing ideas and begin creating something meaningful. At this stage, the teacher acts as a mentor, guiding students as they turn their chosen solution into a product or action. In our climate change lesson, students might design an awareness campaign, create a school climate action plan, develop an energy-saving proposal, or produce a short video or present their ideas by using their presentation to the classmates. For example, one group might design posters to reduce food waste in the cafeteria, while another develops a proposal to reduce electricity consumption across the school. The goal here is no longer to learn about climate change. It's to create a meaningful response to climate change. Assessment might include an action plan, prototype, presentation, or a product rubric. The guiding question is, what can students design to respond responsibly to climate change? Once students have created something meaningful, they are ready for the final stage, which is reflect and act, where they evaluate their learning and consider what action they will take next. Finally, the final stage is reflect and act. This is where students pause to think about what they have learned and how it has changed their thinking. At this stage, the teacher acts as a coach, helping students connect their learning to meaningful action. Students might reflect by asking, what did I learn? Which perspective changed my thinking? What action can I take? How can we improve our solution? For example, at this stage, a student might realize that climate change is not only a science issue, but one that affects people, communities, businesses, and the future generations. Another, let's say, might commit to reducing waste at home or joining a school environmental initiatives. What about assessment? Assessment might include a reflection journal, exit ticket, self-assessment, or an action commitment card. This final stage completes the SPECTRA cycle by connecting knowledge to reflection and responsible action. Now that we have worked through all 6 stages, let's look at the lesson planning template that helps teachers put this framework into practice. This is the SPECTRA lesson planning template. The template includes the SPECTRA stage: teacher role, student task, guiding question, and evidence. The full editable version is included in your handouts. I will share it now. The purpose of the template is to help teachers plan their lesson intentionally. It helps you ask, what do I want students to search for? Which perspectives should they explore? What challenges should they examine? What possibilities can they consider? What product can they create? How will they reflect and act? You can use this template before teaching to design the lesson. You can use it during teaching to guide your questions and activities. You can also use it after teaching to reflect on what worked and what needs improvement. The most important points is this: do not overcrowd your plan. SPECTRA is not about adding many tasks. It's about designing a deeper learning path. Now, let us compare the traditional lessons with the SPECTRA design. Traditional approach and SPECTRA design. This slide shows the shift clearly. In the traditional approach, the task is to identify causes and effects. Students read, watch, list facts, answer questions. The outcome is mostly information and recall. In the SPECTRA design, students investigate, analyze, create, and reflect. They map perspectives, analyze challenges, design solutions, and produce a final product. The final product can be a school climate action plan. This means the lesson moves from content coverage to meaningful application. Students still learn the content, but they also use the content. They use it to understand people, analyze barriers, design actions, and reflect on responsibility. This is the value of the SPECTRA framework. It does not remove knowledge. It deepens what students do with knowledge. Now, let us think about how SPECTRA can be used beyond this climate change example. Why? Okay. How can teachers apply SPECTRA across subjects? SPECTRA is flexible. It can be applied across different subjects. Okay? In English, students can write persuasive letters or speeches about climate action. They can also analyze a character's decision from different perspectives. In math, students can interpret graphs related to temperature change or energy use. In social studies, students can discuss climate justice, community impact, policy decisions, and responsibility. In social emotional learning, students can reflect on personal and collective responsibility toward the environment. The PBL, project-based learning, in project-based learning, students can design and implement a school-wide climate awareness camp, okay? So it can also be used in art, through visuals, in science through lab inquiry, and in technology through digital solutions. The framework adapts to the curriculum, not the other way around. So now that we have seen how it can be applied, let us look at the handouts that will help you start. Please, you can scan this barcode, QR code, the handout here designed to help you move from understanding the framework to applying it. Ms. Maha, you can please share the link in the chat box.
Yes, I will share, yes.
Yes, please. It's about planning a template. You can use it to redesign one lesson or even plan a full unit. Second handout is the SPECTRA guiding questions sheet. This gives you practical questions for each stage. You can use these questions while planning or directly with your students. The third handout, please scan the QR code, or you can take the link from the chat box, Mrs. Maha, sharing
Yes,
it.
just 1 minute, I'm sharing.
Okay. Now we are in the third handout, which is teacher reflection exit ticket. This helps you reflect after trying SPECTRA. You can ask yourself, which stage worked well? Where did the students engage most? What should I adjust next time? Use the tools before teaching, during teaching, and after teaching. Before teaching, use them for planning. During teaching, using them to guide the learning process. After teaching, use them to reflect and improve. Now, before we close, I want to give you a simple way to begin without feeling overwhelmed. Which is my biggest advice, is to start small. You don't need to redesign your whole curriculum. You don't even need to use all 6 stages immediately. Pick one stage, try it in one lesson, observe how students respond, then build it gradually. For example, next week you might add the perceived perspectives to a reading lesson, or you might add examine challenges to a science lesson, or you might add reflect and act at the end of social studies discussion. Small changes can make a big difference when they are intentional. Okay, so in the chat box, please, which SPECTRA stage can you add in your lesson next week? Imagine that we are now still teaching, not in summer vacation. Which SPECTRA stage can you add next week? Waiting for your answers, please. I want just to see which next stage, which SPECTRA stage can you add? Which one? Perceive perspectives. Thank you. What about others? Reflection, which is the final stage. Okay. So teachers, as I mentioned, do not need to redesign everything at once. They can begin with one stage and gradually build richer lessons that move from knowledge to reflection and action. Now, let us close with the final message.
Yes, before closing the sessions, I received many questions from participants. Ms. Mona, if you're ready to answer.
Yes.
Yes, if you can stop just sharing your screen, I will can share it.
Stop sharing? Yes, of course. Wait.
Yes, check your face. So anyone would like to raise a question before I'm gonna share the question received? If you would like to ask directly. Okay, one of the teachers share a question here inbox that some teachers, if she's going to share with her colleagues, that some teachers may feel that applying all the 6 SPECTRA stage is going to take too much time. So in your opinion, how can they start using it without feeling overwhelmed? She just believes that if she's going, she loves the idea, she loves the framework itself. But once she's gonna share with her colleague, maybe they're gonna complain, feeling the stress that we have something additional work to do it. So we appreciate your answer.
This is a very important point. My message to teachers is you don't need to redesign everything at once, as I mentioned. Teachers can start small. They can take one lesson they already teach and add only one SPECTRA stage. So, for example, if they are teaching a story, they can add the perceived perspective stage by asking students to analyze the situation from another character's point of view. If they are teaching a science topic, they can examine challenges by asking students to identify misconceptions, barriers, or real-world limitation. Ms. Maha, the goal is not to make lesson planning heavier.
Exactly.
The goal is to make learning deeper. Even one stage can shift the lesson from passive learning to active thinking. Over time, teachers can gradually add more stages as they become more comfortable. So SPECTRA, as I mentioned before, is flexible. It can be used as a full learning cycle, but it can also begin with one meaningful step.
Thank you. I have another question also from our audience for today. Many educational frameworks already discuss critical thinking, inquiry, reflection, and creativity. So what gap does the educational SPECTRA framework try to fill in?
That is an important question because SPECTRA was not created to repeat what already exists. Many frameworks focus on one important dimension of learning. Some focus on thinking skills, others on inquiry, reflection, creativity. The gap I noticed is that these elements are often treated separately in lesson planning. A teacher may plan for inquiry or in one activity, reflection at the end, creativity in a project, and perspective taking only when there is time. SPECTRA brings these dimensions together in one coherent learning cycle. It helps teachers design learning that moves from knowledge to perspectives, from challenge analysis to possibility thinking, from idea generation to action, and finally to reflection. So the contribution of SPECTRA is not only the 6 stages themselves, but the way they are connected as a practical pathway for deeper learning.
I have more questions, Mona. One from the chat box before we're going to proceed with that. If we can share with our audience a lesson plan, sample lesson plan, so they can apply it.
I shared it in the chat box. The links you shared is the lesson plan template.
Okay, so for the Ms. Zainab, I think, if I'm not,
Yes,
I'm not sure about her name.
she can download it. She can
only-
open the link and download it. It's editable.
And I'm going to share in case you have a problem with the chat box, I'm going to share it on our WhatsApp group. I think most of you are in a video group, so you can you can have it. I will continue. I know time we don't have a lot of time, but if you please urgent questions, Ms. Mona. I just have a question about how does SPECTRA change the role of teachers in the classroom?
SPECTRA changed the role of the teacher from being mainly a content deliverer to being a designer of deeper learning experiences. Of course, teachers still explain, guide, and support, but with the SPECTRA, the teacher's role shifts across the stages. In search, the teacher facilitates knowledge building. In perceive, the teacher guides students to understand different viewpoints. In examine, the teacher supports critical analysis. In consider, the teacher encourages possibility thinking. In transform, the teacher becomes a mentor as the students create something meaningful. In reflect and act, the teacher becomes a coach who helps the students connect learning to responsibility. Of course, this is it doesn't reduce the teacher's role. It actually makes it more powerful. The teacher is no longer only asking, what should I teach? No, the teacher is asking, what kind of thinking do I want students to experience? That shift is very important because deeper learning doesn't happen by chance. It happens through intentional design.
One more question. I'm really sorry. I know you time is about to be over. Just one question from the chat box. What would you say to someone who argues that deeper learning sounds ideal, but it is difficult to measure?
Honestly, this is a very valid concern. Deeper learning can seem difficult to measure. We only think of assessment as tests or factual recall. But deeper learning can be assessed when we look for evidence of thinking. In SPECTRA, each stage can produce evidence. And in the first stage, search for knowledge, students may produce notes, summaries, or data observations, or evidence. And perceive, they may create empathy maps, as I mentioned, or role responses. And examine, they may produce challenge maps or cause and effects analysis. And consider, they may create solution maps or decision matrix. And transform, they may design a product, a proposal, as I mentioned before. In the final stage, they may complete reflection journals or action commitments. So assessment doesn't disappear. No, it becomes richer. We are not only assessing what students know, we are also assessing how they think, how they connect ideas, how they analyze problems, how they create responses, and how they reflect in action. For me, this is one of the strengths of SPECTRA. It makes deeper learning visible through different forms of evidence.
Okay. Someone is raising their hand. Yes, Angela, if you would like to ask a question, feel free to do.
Thank you very much. Mona, thank you very much for such nice conference related to SPECTRA. Really, really interesting. My question is, can I relate this? Is it similar to design thinking? I was thinking that maybe some of the steps are similar to design thinking process.
Yes, yes, of course. And perceive perspectives. This stage is very aligned with the design thinking approach. Yes.
Any other question? I just want to remind our participants, so please, I have shared the certificates of attendance link on the chat box. So please do your best to fill in the link before moving to avoid any certificates delay. For the participants who are asking about the YouTube recording, also like usually, it's going to be uploaded on our channel. I will share it also on our WhatsApp group. I have also shared the WhatsApp group link for the new participants. So in case you're not there, you can double check and join. As we conclude today's webinar, actually from content delivery to deeper learning, I would like to really thank you all for joining us. Today's sessions reminded us that the real education actually goes beyond sharing information. It's about creating meaningful learning experience that inspire thinking, reflection, and growth. A special thank you to Ms. Mona Sawan, our IIU Education Ambassador, for sharing her valuable knowledge, insight on the SPECTRA framework and its role in effective lesson planning. On behalf of International Internship University, I also would like to thank all attendees for your presence and for your engagement. We hope you will take today's idea and apply them to create deeper, more impactful learning. Thank you once again for being with us, and we look forward, like usually, to welcoming you in our upcoming International Internship University session. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you so much for being part of this webinar. Thank you for your commitment to education. And thank you, IIU. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Take today's idea and apply them